Okay, thank you for coming to the March 17th, 2025 marketing office hours, the free horse business marketing office hours. And today we are discussing Feel, Felt, Found and how this simple framework can help you improve your social media content and grow your social media views and engagement. Real quick, my name is Tina Derby, and I own Christina Derby Consulting based in Ocala, Florida. My colleague, Chris Allen, is also here, and Chris owns Dark Horse VA in Arnold, Missouri. And together, through our organizations, we offer services such as website design, digital ad creation, ad campaign management, email campaign development, budgeting and business plan development, appointment setting and customer follow-up, pitch deck creation and assistance with capital raises from private investors, and customer relationship management systems for horse farms. And an introduction. What we're going to cover today is, first of all, understanding just what is Feel, Felt, Found, this storytelling framework, why storytelling is particularly effective in equestrian businesses, practical applications for your social media marketing, real-world examples that drive client engagement, and an action plan to implement this strategy. So, first of all, what is Feel, Felt, Found? Well, this is a method that creates a connection through empathy and shared experience. So, feel is where you acknowledge how your potential client feels right now. Felt is where you share how you or another client once felt the same way. And then found is where you explain the solution that was found and the positive results. So, storytelling in general. Why does storytelling work so well? Well, stories create emotional connections that facts and figures just can't create. Stories are more memorable than traditional advertising. People value authenticity and relatability, which are both parts of storytelling. And social media algorithms favor engagement that the stories naturally create. So here's an example of a Feel, Felt, Found story. We'll just kind of go through it and then I'll break it down for you. So imagine that you're creating a post to put on social media, and this could be the script for your post. This would be a story of Sally. And so I'd be the speaker in the post. So I'd be on camera talking to the audience. So, hey, is your kid struggling to find a sport that she or he loves? Well, I know how that is. See, late last year, my daughter Sally was in gymnastics when she came home all sad because one of the kids had laughed at her when she couldn't do a cartwheel. I remember she threw her bag on the floor and she said, "I'm never doing sports again." Well, hi, I'm Debbie, and boy, I know what it's like to watch your child struggle to find a sport where they can be a star. I signed up Sally for everything: gymnastics, dance, tennis, cheerleading, each time hoping that this would be the one that clicked. But no matter what we tried, Sally always ended up feeling discouraged. She wasn't the fastest, the most flexible, or the most coordinated. I would buy her all the gear and register for classes, but inevitably she would just lose interest, and worse than that, she started getting the idea that she wasn't athletic at all. That just depressed her, and she started spending all her time in her room on her phone. Well, one day I saw the River Fair Farms was hosting an ice cream social and farm tour. Since Sally's always had a thing for horses, I bought us a couple of tickets so we could attend. I wasn't really expecting anything. I just figured that we'd enjoy a day outside, see the horses, and eat some ice cream. But boy, that's when everything changed. As part of the farm tour, Sally got to ride for a few minutes on one of their lesson horses. Well, when they put her up on that horse, I saw something in her I had not seen before. It was confidence. She sat tall in the saddle, she listened, she focused, and for the first time, I could see that she was feeling wonderful. She was just riding that horse, doing great, and she loved it. Of course, I signed her up for a few trial lessons to see if this might be a sport that would work well for her. Well, it was. Now, 9 months later, Sally is taking lessons twice a week, and last weekend, she brought home a blue ribbon in the halter class at her very first horse show. I really had given up on finding a sport where Sally could thrive, but thankfully we found horseback riding. And the best part, Sally didn't just find a sport, she found an entire family. She calls the other kids at River Fair Farms her barn besties, and watching her light up when she talks about riding or is getting ready to head to the barn, well, that has been the most incredible gift. Anyhow, if you have a child who loves animals but who hasn't quite found their sport yet, you really might give River Fair Farms a try. Maybe join them for their next ice cream social and farm tour day, because you never know where it might lead. And worst case scenario, you get to pet some friendly animals and eat some awesome ice cream. So that would be an example of a story that you could record and then post onto social media. Or you could have a client record it. And obviously it would be their story, but this was just an example one. But not difficult to create and not difficult to record either. So I'll break down the feel, felt, found components now. So the feel one, again, that's the first part. And that is where you recognize and validate your potential client's current feelings or their challenges. And you want to be specific and focus on common pain points. So examples for that would be things like feeling nervous about cantering for the first time, or struggling to find the right show horse within your budget, or worried your child might not stick with riding lessons. So that would be sort of how you start your post, what you'd start the beginning of your script. The felt component, that's sort of part two, is where you share a relatable experience showing that you understand. And you can use your own personal experiences or have clients share their experiences. Or you can share their experiences as long as you have their permission to do that. So examples would be, I felt the same way before my first show season. Many of our adult riders also felt intimidated to start lessons in their 40s. Or one of our trainers felt overwhelmed when searching for her first dressage prospect. The found component, so that's sort of the concluding part, the ending of your post, will be to deliver the solution and the positive outcome. And you want to be specific about the results, but be careful not to overpromise. So examples would be, we found that our confidence building program helps riders progress at their own pace. Our clients found that our trial period for sale horses removed the stress from purchasing decisions. And parents have found that our youth program builds responsibility and confidence that extends beyond the barn. So those are just quick examples. Obviously, in that first one I gave you where I talked about Sally, you can see that it was a little bit more in depth, but this is sort of the 3 parts, overviews of each of the 3 parts of feel, felt, found. So an example for a riding lesson program might be, the feel part would be intimidated by the thought of learning to ride as an adult. The felt part, which is the middle part, our client Sarah felt exactly the same way when she returned to riding after 20 years away. She worried she'd be the oldest beginner in the arena. And then the final part, the found part, is Sarah found out that our adult focus program gave her the confidence to progress quickly in a supportive environment. Now, not only does she ride with us several times a week, she actually teaches our popular comeback riders class for those 40 and over who have been away from riding for several years. And then, of course, so you'll be on screen talking, or somebody will be. You don't have to be on screen, but typically it works best if you are actually on screen, like recording yourself with your, camera or your cell phone or whatever. But also then in the background, you can use the editing tools that are either on your phone or in something like CapCut or Adobe Premiere Pro to put either photos or videos sort of behind you. And then you could have, in this case, would be like before and after videos of a confident adult rider, right? So you put whatever in the background makes sense for what you're talking about. So that would be for riding lessons. And then for a show horse training program, you could have frustrated by inconsistent performances at shows despite your horse's talent. Well, we felt the same way with Midnight Express, a talented gelding who would shine at home but fall apart at competitions. But then we found that our systematic show preparation program, which includes mock shows and environmental desensitization, transformed Midnight into a consistent winner. Best of all, we have used this program on many horses, and now our clients' horses are performing just as beautifully at shows as they do at home. And then, of course, in the background for that audio, you would have like video clips or images of horses and riders competing successfully. Or in this case, probably a particular one, it would probably be pictures of Midnight, the horse, competing. And then for a sales horse barn, you could have something like worried about making an expensive mistake when purchasing your next horse. When I was looking for my first horse after being out of horses for 25 years, I felt overwhelmed by the sales process, concerned about misleading ads and the limited trial rides, and maybe even horses that were on some relaxation medications. But when I discovered Porter Farms, I saw immediately that their sales program was different. They offered me detailed videos, comprehensive vet information, and an extended trial period, so I got to ride and spend time with Buddy. You have a video of Buddy there in the background, for 2 whole weeks. Well, needless to say, I fell in love with Buddy, and since I had gotten to know him so well, I felt really comfortable with the decision to make him my own. Buddy and I have been together now for the past 3 years, and I can honestly say he was the perfect horse for me. Working with Porter Farms just made the whole process so easy and fun, and it took all the worry and risk out of getting a new horse. So again, in the background, you'll have clips of Bobby and Buddy and, have Bobby riding Buddy and petting him and whatever. So, in the background, you make whatever images are appropriate. So what platforms could you use this on? Well, pretty much any social media platform, including Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. Content types. So there are different types of content. You could have client transformation posts, right? Showing the transformation from when somebody, let's say, started riding with you to, 6 months later, they're winning at their first horse show or whatever. You could have day in the life stories, before and after videos, kind of similar to the transformation ones. Progress updates. So that's kind of fun. It's almost like a serial where people, let's say every Friday, people get to tune in to see how Sally's doing at her lessons or whatever the horse is doing or whatever. And testimonial features. So just testimonials of people talking, and explaining their story and what it was like for them. Formats. Want to keep these typically around 60 seconds. They can be longer than that. They can be shorter than that, but usually 60 seconds is a reasonable length of time. They don't have to be super long. Use captions effectively to tell your story. So most all of the programs that you can use for editing video will have really good tools for creating captions from the audio. A lot of times you can automate a lot of that caption creation. And the reason captions are important is because a lot of people will still watch videos with the volume turned off. So using captions will help you to get your message across to more people. So it doesn't rely on them having the volume on. Always be sure to include some sort of clear call to action at the end. And it could be something like click for more information, click to download our little ebook on how to train your horse, could be register for a farm tour, buy a ticket to a sip and ride. So there's a million things that a call to action can be, but something where you tell the person that the next step is. If they have interest in what they just heard, here's where you go for more of whatever. Content calendars. So content calendars are used at pretty much even small businesses, but certainly medium and larger businesses. They don't just sort of guess at what they're going to have for content. They actually plan it out, usually like a month in advance. And so an example of a content calendar would be, okay, on Mondays, we're going to have a spotlight of a student featuring using the Feel, Felt, Found journey that we talked about earlier. Wednesday, you would have some sort of a training tip, which addresses a common challenge. On Fridays, you'd highlight a horse training progress or some sort of a sale horse. On Sundays, you would have an inspirational why we do this story, focusing on things like kids gaining confidence, adults making new friends, that kind of thing. So and the calendar is nice because it kind of makes it easy to get your head into sort of what are we going to produce? Okay, every week it's going to be the same. It's not going to be the same thing exactly, but it's the same type of thing. And it just tends to make it easier, especially when you're starting to create content, that you don't have to, it takes less thinking, I guess, right? Because, okay, we know what it's like making recipes for what you're going to eat every day of the week, right? We're always going to have spaghetti on Wednesdays. We're always going to have fish on Fridays. Okay, so we've already figured that piece out. Now we just kind of figure out what sort of spaghetti or what kind of fish or whatever it is. So it just makes the whole experience a little bit easier and less mental effort on your part. Measuring success. So this is really important. You really need to measure your success to see if you're getting better. Are you getting worse? What posts are working for you? Which ones don't? Because obviously you want to do more of what works and do less of what doesn't work, because not everything's going to work. That's for anybody. Doesn't matter how good you get at this game. Nobody's like perfect all the time. So you want to really track like your engagement rates to see how many people are viewing your content, how many people are sharing it. So that's really important, the views and the shares and the comments people leave. And you want to pay attention and be like, oh, okay, this one got a lot of shares, a lot of comments. This is something that I want to create more of, right? Whereas the ones that don't, obviously you don't, you might try them a few times, but eventually if you're like, you tried the same thing 5 or 6 times and it's just not taking, you might be like, that's okay. We won't do any more of that. We'll go focus on the stuff that's doing really well. So it's important to pay attention and, to take an hour or two each week to really analyze your results. Let's see. So for an action plan, when you're going to, depending on what you offer, right? So if you're a lesson program, you don't have to worry about the training and showing stuff on this slide. But if you're a training program and you don't teach lessons, then, focus on that. So you don't have to do all of this stuff. Just focus on what you do offer at your farm. And the part at the end with riding helmets, that was for those who offer products for sale at their farm or through their website, which is getting to be more and more common. So you can offer this for your services, but you can also offer this for any products that you sell. Although you'd want to focus on products that people purchase a lot because you want to make it worth your time. So basically, to come up with the ideas, like I have lessons and then I have number 1, 2, 3, right? Common problems are costs, scheduling conflicts, and fear and confidence issues. And that's just 3 of many, but those are 3 that I came up with. And then in training, 3 pain points could be slow progress, mismatched horse and trainer and horse, and cost of training. So those would be 3 pain points that a lot of people that have horses in training might feel, right? So I would start by talking to ChatGPT or Google Gemini or Claude AI or any of the AI tools. Brainstorm with them what the different pain points are for whatever it is that you offer for sale. And that could be services or products or both. And then come up with a list of as many pain points as you can think of that are reasonable. And then maybe prioritize those, right? There's some that are more common than others. And then you can just start going down the list of those pain points and creating content that addresses those. Let's see. So you can also ask your students or their parents, or if they're adult amateurs, ask them to talk about their pain points, so you can be sure that you've got that input. ChatGPT is great, but doesn't know everything, so get real human input also. And then you can also ask your students, parents, amateurs, whatever, to create stories that you can include in your social posts. So especially a lot of kids, they're going to love this because they do this stuff all the time anyhow. You can also require weekly story submissions from your staff posts, so that it's not all on you to create all the content. try to like spread it around, unless you really love creating content. But feel free to ask others to help create content. And I think from staff, you know, you want to be an ogre, but it is, I think, reasonable for most staff to say, okay, your job now, part of your job is to create content for social. And some people might really balk at that, and you have to work with them. You don't want to force them if they really, really don't want to. But, you know, if they're okay with it, I think it's reasonable to expect them to make a post or two each week. And then you yourself would also take some time to make, you know, a few posts. And if everybody's kind of pitching in on this, then it's not like an overwhelming amount of work for one person to try to do. And remember also, these posts do not have to be long. In fact, they really shouldn't. So 60 seconds, you can do 30 seconds, you can do 60 seconds, 90 seconds. These are not long, you know, drawn out presentations like I'm doing right now. They're just very quick posts for social media. And as I talked about earlier, schedule like a weekly review of your results. So figure that like, okay, in your day off or whatever, Sunday, Monday, whenever you like take a break from being in the barn all day, part of what you're going to do is to sit down and spend time both creating some posts, but then also reviewing the posts that you've done and determining which sort of content are working well for you and what you're going to do more of, and then what you probably want to back off of. But also remember that just because you did one type of post once and maybe it didn't do well, try it 5 or 6 times. Don't just try it once, because there's a lot of different reasons that something may or may not do well. So don't just throw the whole baby out with the bathwater. You know, give it a chance for you to give it enough tries before you just give up on it. Because, you know, you should always try things multiple times. That's the beauty of digital marketing, is that you can test things a lot, and you should. And yeah, and that's about it for the Feel, Felt, Found. So do we have any questions or input or anything? We're all feeling good about Feel, Felt, Found. Okay, well, if you need help or have questions later that you think of, feel free to email me at tina@christinadaderby.com or send me a text at 203-893-3365, and I am happy to answer any questions that may come up later. Or you can always come back next Monday at 8 o'clock and bring your questions to our marketing Zoom call at that time.